Join me to paint a beautiful poppy field using watercolors. I start by wetting the paper as I'm going to use wet on wet technique. After wetting the paper, next I apply a light value of ultramarine blue for the sky. Next I pick a small amount of permanent orange and mix with light value of ultramarine to get a bluish shade to paint the gradient sky. After that I mixed yellow ochre with permanent orange, which is then followed by painting with yellow ochre alone. We created a beautiful gradient sky. Next, we move on to paint the poppy field, first using a mix of ultramarine with small amount of gamboge yellow. After applying the pigment, tilt the board and remove all the excess watercolor pigment that is collected near the tip to avoid formation of cauliflower effect. After that, I splattered some indigo pigment. I'm using wet pigment on the paper and a damp brush to create stems in a poppy field. You should be very careful while using this damp brush technique because if there is any excess water on the brush, then it will push the pigment out of its place. So to have a damp brush, first dip the brush in clear water and then remove any excess water on the brush using a cloth. Now the brush is completely damp. Use it to gently give strokes on the wet paint so that it will create a natural distant stems in a poppy field. My paper is still wet. I'm using vermilion hue to make marks on wet paper for the poppy flowers. After making some random marks using vermilion hue, I use the same pigment to splatter on the wet paper. After splattering vermilion hue, I splattered some indigo pigment and then I allowed the paper to dry completely. Splatter vermilion hue at the middle of the paper and indigo at the bottom of the paper. Now that my paper is completely dry, I'm going to paint some poppy flowers using vermilion hue. The approach I use for painting poppy flowers is by creating a wide U shape and adding an extra stroke for a petal which is curving outward. This is to create realistic poppy flowers, and also I vary the direction of these U-shaped flowers so that it will enhance the realism in our painting. Next, using a mix of gamboge yellow with ultramarine, I paint the stems. I used indigo pigment to add eye of the poppy flowers. I also added some poppy buds and leaves using the mix of ultramarine with a small amount of gamboge hue. Now I'm splattering indigo pigment at the bottom and some vermilion at the middle of the paper. Here you can see how I paint a poppy flower. Just I made an U shape and added a stroke for a petal which is little outward. Next, at the middle, I used indigo pigment for the eye of the poppy flower. After that, I added stems and leaves for this flower. We reached the end of this painting process. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you in another video. Until then, take care and bye-bye from Prema.